Good morning, and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is April 7th, 2024. This is episode 130. I've done 130 of these things. Can you believe it? Every single day. Haven't missed a day. This is a podcast by a dreamer for all you dreamers out there going for something big in life or small. It doesn't matter, just as long as you're going for something that feels outside of your reach. I am a comedian and an actor with some pretty big dreams myself, and I do this podcast just documenting my journey, what I'm learning for anybody listening there. I'm not an expert in anything. I haven't made it, so I am not coming from a place of, let me show you the way. I am coming from a place of, I'm in the way. I'm in the way, everybody. I'm trying to block you. I'm not in your way, but I am in the midst of my journey. And so I am just sharing my experience as I seek to grow and expand as a comedian, get bigger opportunities, grow as an artist, grow as a performer, become more funny and more successful. So last night I had 2 more shows at JP's Comedy Club, which is my home club. I am very fortunate enough to be able to perform there at least, usually do 5 times a month. This time it'll be 10 because I substituted for another comic for these last rounds of shows, and I will be performing there again in a couple of weeks. And I spoke to the owner last night, and he informed me that he and his wife watch the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast pretty much every day, which honestly was incredibly flattering. And man, I've got some issues, people. I have some limiting belief systems I'd like to talk to you about. And so I started doing this podcast back in November, and I didn't honestly think anybody would ever listen to it ever. Isn't that kind of bad? Like that I would go into this assuming it's not going to be effective or go well. I don't know. There's something there that I've been grappling with of, if that's what I believe, how am I approaching everything that I'm doing? Am I approaching everything that I'm doing with the assumption that nobody will watch it? Which is that going to, well, how could it not influence the energy and the care and consideration I put into what I'm doing? And so, yeah, so when he said that, he watches it every day and likes it. So, I think that is important. It was important for me to hear that, and I appreciated hearing that, if you're listening to it right now, because I don't know. I think it's so easy for any of us out there trying to do something, whether it's in the artistic space or the entrepreneurial space or whatever it is, to, I don't know, I feel like there's a part of, I don't want to say us because I don't want to speak for everybody. I'll just speak for me. I know there's a part of me that has this big, like, something's going to happen. I'm going to get a big break. I'm going to have a huge turning point, and there's going to be a day or a thing that's going to happen that's going to take me from zero to hero. And yet day after day after day after day, it's so much just grinding away and so much rejection and so much things not going well that I think, at least for me, I have a tendency to almost expect things to go bad as sort of a defense mechanism. It's probably the equivalent of, if you ever gotten like out of a relationship or you had really high hopes for a specific relationship and it comes crashing down and then you're like, I'm never dating again. or, you do the thing that I think so many of us do, which is, oh, women are this or men are that. We have a tendency to go very, very low resolution and just go, all things are bad all the time, or all things are great all the time. And, life, I just think, is so much more nuanced and subtle. And, but yeah, just me realizing like, oh, like people are listening to this. I know my mom listens because she comments every day. And I have another friend who comments almost every day, although she hasn't told me who she is. She just says she knows me, but I haven't been able to figure out who you are, Tia, whatever. And I look at my YouTube views and stuff, and they're very, very, very modest. We're talking 40, 50 views. And when I see 40 views, my mind goes, oh, that's probably 3 or 4 views. Because I just really have no delusion that 40 people are watching all 20 minutes of all episodes. I don't actually know how YouTube measures views. I mean, I think it could be like less than a minute of them watching to be considered a view. So anyway, just hearing, Jim, a man who I respect tremendously, he started his own comedy club. He does comedy. He's a great comedian himself, and just be like, oh yeah, let's listen to your podcast, and actually is either gaining insight for it, or at least, it gives a bit of a conversation with himself to go, oh, do I relate to that? Do I agree with that? Do I disagree with that? And that's really all I'm trying to do, is just provide a sounding board for how my mind is processing this journey that I'm on, and just throwing it out there and allowing anybody who happens to listen to glean from it whatever they do, good or bad. And I had mentioned to my buddy Jim last night, because he just said, like, really, you do this every day? I'm going, yeah, I do it every day. And I wanted to readdress that, because I've spoken about it in previous episodes as to why I'm doing this daily. And there's a very specific reason, and I don't know if it's a good reason, but it is the reason. And that reason is I'm going to be very vulnerable with a huge flaw that I perceive as a flaw. And that is, man, do I lack discipline on a great many things. And I, throughout my life, have just had countless ambitions to enact some sort of disciplinary action in my life that I know would yield beneficial results, whether that is within the exercise arena, the dieting arena, the artistic arena, the athletic arena. I mean, even last year, I did this competition with myself to see if I could train myself to dunk a basketball. And I did it for about 6 months. And I did pretty good with consistency. I had a couple of dips. I got injured. I missed a couple of days. But, I did pretty good. I got to a point to where I could touch rim pretty consistently. And then things shifted in my life. My priorities shifted, and I stopped doing that. And now, of course, I'm back to fat and slow and can't jump at all. It hurts to even jump up and touch the net when I play basketball. So it's like all of that work that I did, and I have no real, any sort of tangible gains that I may have received from working out that much is, I've pretty much reverted to where I was. Now, does that mean I regret it? Does it mean I shouldn't have started in the first place? No. For a good 6 months, I was in really good shape, or better shape than I usually am. But then my priorities shifted again to comedy. I had a big show coming up. I got a new social media manager. The social media manager said, yeah, you doing those dunk videos, because I was posting a dunk video every day. When I say dunk video, I mean a video of me trying to dunk. There was no dunking going on in the videos, except for my ego into a pit of despair. So my social media manager said, yeah, we got to be more consistent with your brand and blah, 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 blah. And the only reason I was posting those videos every day was for my own accountability, because I wanted to create some social pressure and see if I could just get enough people who were kind of checking in. What started to happen, a buddy of mine put me on his podcast about it. And then when I stopped, I had a couple people be like, hey, you still trying to dunk a basketball? And no, because I quit. At the end of the day, I quit. So at the end of November, I had just done a really big show that I put a lot of effort into, a big stand-up comedy show that I helped co-produce with another producer down in Tucson. I spent thousands of dollars on marketing just out of my own pocket, hoping that I could sell out this venue. I lost thousands of dollars. Overall, it turned out pretty well. But I was sort of regrouping from that and was like, okay, well, I have proven to myself that I don't quite have the financial resources to sell out a show with my current level of fame or marketing materials. At least can't sell out a show in Tucson, Arizona, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on it. So what do I do now? And I just said, well, I need to dive back into social media, trying to grow my social media presence, trying to figure out what sort of clips of mine work online, how to trick the nebulous algorithm. And so as part of that, I started posting reels every day, and that's when I also decided to do this podcast. And there was a lot more going into it. There was a lot of me just challenging myself. It had very little to do with me having any sort of ambition that this podcast is somehow going to blow up and, I'll be able to monetize or anything like that. Sure, I mean, I always have a little bit of hope. I always have a little bit of well, maybe in me. But again, that sort of realist, I've been burned so many times. I've done so many different, made so many different attempts at online type of content to try to make something that, pops. And I'll have these ideas and I'll put a lot of effort into trying to produce different video ideas, the best that I think that I can do them, to try to test these concepts. And then, I'll post a handful of videos, and then I usually don't see any sort of indication that what I'm doing is going to move the needle. And then, for whatever reason, I'll just stop doing it. Which brings up a really hard question for me to answer, which is, how many of those ideas actually were bad? No matter how much I did them, they just never would have really moved the needle for me, or how much of it was I had planted the seeds, I just didn't give it enough time to actually grow into something. I don't like that I just asked myself that question. That is too much truth for me to confront on a Sunday morning. But, like with the dunking the basketball thing, hey, in 6 months, I got up to touching rim. If I would have stuck with it, and I was doing a rigorous workout routine. I was doing a rigorous workout routine. It's what if I hadn't quit? What if I had another 6 months of doing those workouts? Where would I be now? Could I be grabbing rim? Could I get my wrist over the rim? I'll never know because I quit. So when it came down to doing this podcast, I said to myself, I want to do something daily, consistently, every effing day, no excuses. No excuses. Execute. Something that is executable. What is something I can do every freaking day and just commit to it? And then I said, whatever it is, I'm going to do it for 1 year. Something daily within the artistic space. And I thought of this podcast and I just went, I have this resistance to putting myself out there because of that mindset. Oh, nobody cares. Nobody wants to listen to me and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, well, that's so vulnerable. What am I going to say? Once I put myself out there, then I'm just opening myself up for, criticism or getting canceled or saying the wrong thing. And all of this just fear-based narrative and this scarcity, narrative and this ego-driven thought processes. And I actually still remember I was driving home from Tucson and I was on the I-10. Yeah, the I-10, or is it the I-15? No, it's the I-10. I-10 goes east and west, right? The I-10 down to Tucson. And I remember I was driving home from Tucson. I was down there doing something for that show. And I just went, get over yourself, get over your ego, just start a podcast, just start doing it, figure it out, and just do it, but commit to doing it, and I'm having this sort of like inner dialogue. And so while I'm driving on the I-10, I pull off to the Guitar Center there off of, I think it's I-10 and Warner, maybe I-10 and Ray. Pulled off of the Guitar Center. I got this arm here. I got this little nifty mixer, which plugs right into my phone. And I bought all that, and then I didn't even have this microphone yet. I started with a different microphone. Oh, I'll show you. This is fun. We're going to do a little show and tell. Sorry to all of you listening to this. If you want to see the show and tell, you have to watch the YouTube. So this microphone, which is a microphone that I've had for, probably 15 years. I bought this when I was in a cover band so I could do backup vocals. And I had another mic stand, which is right here. This fun little show and tell, everybody. We're going through memory lane of how the Paul Green Comedy Podcast started. I had this microphone stand, that microphone, a mic cord. Matter of fact, I think I jumped the gun here. I actually don't think I had this arm yet. I think I just bought the mixer. So anyway, and I sat in front of a blue screen. Matter of fact, we're going to get all kinds of show and tell. I just sat in front of that blue screen. I didn't have any of this background stuff. Sat in front of that blue screen, and I just filmed my first episode just sitting in front of that blue screen, and then I made a little graphic in Canva and spent like 3 or 4 hours designing this sort of background graphic. If you go back and you watch the early episodes of the Paul Green Comedy Podcast, you can see that what I did is I just cropped myself out and put myself in front of that backdrop, just cropped out the blue screen. I know how to do some basic video editing stuff, so I just chroma keyed myself out. And just started from there. Just started with what I already had and just started figuring it out as I went. The next thing I did was add these I put these little brick decals on my wall, and then I had like a plant. I bought these chairs. I had my first guest. I bought this microphone, this arm. Then when I needed to have a guest, I bought 2 of them. I interviewed Jim. I went. I got to where I could do it mobily. I figured out just how I could take it on the road, so I could record the podcasts when I was traveling, so that I would never miss a day. And I don't know. That's just important to me, just for my own conquering my own personal demons, is just proving to myself that I can actually do something that I say I'm going to do every single day without exception. I mean, if I miss a day, it better be, well, let's not put that out into the universe. I do have a pretty firm commitment to release them at 8 a.m. So I've released almost every episode at 8 a.m. That I've had a few exceptions on, because just sometimes with, traveling or whatever, I think I've had like 2 or 3 episodes out of the 130 that I released a little later than 8 a.m. So I don't know what any of this is leading to. Again, when I was talking to Jim, he just said, "Hey, man, you never know. Like, something could blow up." And it's like, that would be amazing. I have hope for that. I have ambition and drive for that. I'm not at a place now to where I have that like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen. Oh yeah. I still have that like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I would love it if something really cool happened in, some episode of this, does something. I don't know. All I know is I am trying to be as authentic as I can be, with my precious ego still intervening when it wants to intervene, in terms of how authentic and honest and vulnerable I want to be. And that I am committed to popping one of these out every single day, sharing my journey as a dreamer, and doing it for at least 365 days. So it's not like I'm going to do 365 days and quit, but it's like that's goal number 1. Can I just do something for 1 whole year? And just do it, and just not allow myself to get pulled off of that agenda. Again, I mean, that's what I wanted to do with the ducking videos. I wanted to give those ducking videos a year. And then, something came up. And instead of me just telling my social media manager, hey, bro, you're probably right. These probably aren't consistent with my brand, but I got to do these for me, so figure out a way to make them work. Like if I had that level of commitment to what it was that I was doing, then I would have kept doing it. Obviously, the dunking was not my highest calling. It was just really more of a curiosity. If I even could see a light at the end of that tunnel, because it just seemed completely audacious, but I wanted to give it a try. And I'm inclined to believe, it's like, well, I went from barely being able to touch the net to where I could touch the rim fairly consistent. There's about 2 weeks where every time I went to the gym, after warming up and stuff, I could jump up and touch the rim. So if I could get to that level, increase my vertical about 4 or 5 inches just to get to that point, what's to say I couldn't have doubled that? Gotten to at least to where I could get my arm over the rim, But I didn't. I planted that seed. I started to see a little sprout, and then I was like, this is too much work to water this one. And, maybe that's okay, because that ambition is, I'm not going to say it's not in alignment, but there's only so many things that I can focus on, and an athletic goal is just not my highest priority. My highest priority are creative, artistic goals, comedy goals, learning how to get funny. How can I be really funny? I know I can be really funny in some contexts. I know I can be really funny when I'm spontaneous, when I'm improvising, when I'm riffing with the crowd. What I haven't figured out is how to just level a room with material. And that has been a shift for me this last week, and that I've been getting a little bit of mentorship from my comedian friend Andrew, who's unbelievably talented, and he's taken me under his wing, and he's already starting to really push me and challenge me to write. The first thing you said is you should be writing 3 jokes a day, 3 new jokes every single day, brand new, written out, fleshed out jokes a day. Like, there we go. There's a discipline. There's a goal. And I need to wrap my head around that before like really diving in and committing to it. But I'm just like, well, yeah, how else would it happen without some consistent discipline? And I hate it. It's not fun. It's not pretty. It is just I've used this analogy before. It's the part of the movie that is so boring that they sum it up in a montage, right? It's the Rocky montage. It's like, oh, this is where he just wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. for the next year, and wakes up at 5 a.m. and then goes and runs 5 miles, and then goes and punches meat hanging in a meat locker for hours and hours and hours, and then goes to the gym and jumps rope for hours and hours and hours, and then spars for hours and hours and hours. It's boring. And then he wakes up and he does it the next morning. And the movie goes, hey, that's really boring. That's not fun. Let's just sort of summarize that with a cool little montage with Eye of the Tiger. Let's get him running up the steps. And let's not actually show how much effing work it takes. You know, in his case, to be a successful athlete. In my case, to be a successful performer. So that is the humble pie that I need to eat now, is really diving into some discipline as a writer. And I have challenged myself to have that discipline since I've started doing comedy, and I have never been consistently or habitually disciplined at writing jokes. And I think that shows in my stand-up comedy. When I do material, I don't think it's as tight or as polished in a manner that is also optimizing the funny. I can be really funny off the cuff because that's my wheelhouse. That's where I feel comfortable. But being able to go like, this joke that I've written down and honed and have crafted, I know that when I say it into a microphone, I am going to elicit the same level of comedic response that I do when I'm riffing. Like, the writing is that quality and that organic, and that funny. And I don't know, kids. I feel like I got a long way to go to get there. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. The journey of a Netflix special starts with a single joke. So let it be written. Let the scrolls unfurl, and written therein are the jokes. Hitherfore, spewed forth from my quill to parchment. I don't know. What the hell am I doing? All right, everybody. That was a lot of rambling on. I hope that it, that you got something out of it. And I hope you are all doing well, challenging yourself, challenging your limiting beliefs, challenging your struggle with discipline. I can't imagine that I'm the only one. So, but I will not speak for you. I can only speak for me, and just saying that has always been a real challenge. So, best of luck to all of you out there following your dreams. I hope it's going well and that you are finding success. And, you know, let's get some big breaks. Let's get some, you know, the work and the work and the work and the work, and then something really cool happened and it paid off. All right, everybody. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening to the Paul Green Comedy Podcast, April 7th, 2024, episode 130. Have a beautiful Sunday, and I will talk to you tomorrow.